Hello everybody, we're back here in El Paso, the best place in the country, and I've got a special guest today, the Mayor of Juarez, Jose Reyes Ferriz, who's taken office and really has Juarez going in a great direction. Mayor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Senator, for inviting me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you again.
Well, we're really pleased you're here, and we're watching your leadership in Juarez, and working together, we can really make things happen, I think. Such good things are happening in El Paso. Juarez, we've got some challenges, but I think things in the next 10 years we'll see some really remarkable growth in our great community. Tell us about yourself. Where did you grow up? Where did you end up getting your education? And how did you get into politics?
Well, I grew up in Juarez. I went to public schools in the city of Juarez. For a little bit after I graduated from high school, I was a commercial pilot. Then got back into law school and finished my law degree at the University of Notre Dame, where I got my master's and became an attorney managing international transactions, basically, and teaching international law at the university. And a funny thing happened there where three of my students became congressmen, and one of the elections for city mayor was annulled in 2001, and Congress had to decide who was going to be a temporary mayor, and those three students of mine and the governor proposed that I be the mayor, and from being a professor at the university, I became the mayor of the city of Juarez. And after that, I got back into politics. This was my first election. I'd never run for anything, but won by a very wide margin the election in 2007.
Well, I was there at your inauguration. It was so exciting. You had the whole convention center filled up, and people were so excited about you becoming the mayor, but I don't think a lot of people know that story about your previous service as the fill-in mayor, the temporary mayor, and now being elected for a full term today. That's unique in Juarez history.
It is. I did have a background in politics. My father was a mayor of the city. He was a federal congressman, and so I grew up with politics in my family. My grandfather was a revolucionario in the early 1900s, and a state congressman and a mayor also. So I did grow up with it. I had never thought about becoming a mayor, but we're working hard. I think it's a very nice position to help move the city in the right direction. That's
really a great story. Let's talk about Juarez a little bit. You know, you've got such a storied history, particularly with the Mexican Revolution and Benito Juarez himself and that period of Juarez's history. If you went back 170 years, this would be obviously part of Spain, part of Mexico in our history. You have this river running through here, the Paso del Norte, and then you have Juarez's emergence in the 60s as maybe the lead example in Mexico of this new manufacturing destiny. So take us back in history, talk about Juarez a little bit, and then talk about the modern day Juarez, what you see as the opportunities for Juarez and maybe some of the challenges.
Well, Juarez has had a very important aspect in Mexican history. Of course, when the French invaded Mexico, President Benito Juarez had to flee with his staff, presidential staff, and for a short time he established Mexico's presidential palace right in downtown Juarez. And the interesting thing there was being in Juarez allowed him to communicate with the United States a lot and get the support that he needed from the United States to help stop European countries from invading the Americas, where that saying "America's for the Americans" was born, and we got through his stay here, the support of the United States in the process of retaking the country, and President Benito Juarez was able to get back and get the French invasion out of Mexico. Same thing happened with the revolution. The revolution came to Juarez, where the president, Francisco y Madero, was staying right across Zarco, right across the river, and trying to invade Mexico. And that was like the first media war in the world. There was New York Times reporter was in El Paso. A lot of media were there, of course, newspapers at that time, and they were reporting on what was happening in Juarez. And when the revolutionary soldiers were able to take the city of Juarez, it was basically over for the then dictator of Mexico, Porfirio Diaz, who had to resign and leave the country. So the history of Juarez has been a very important history for the country, and of course the closeness with the United States has been very important for commerce and for industry. In Juarez, we created this idea of the Maquila Company back in the mid-'60s, and what started off as something exclusive for Fortune 500 companies basically has grown tremendously, where we now have a large portion of Mexico's foreign income coming in from the maquila industry itself. We're second only to monies coming in from workers in the United States that are sending money into their Mexican families. Petroleum, of course, which is a high-priced commodity, and the third largest source of income is the maquila industry, even above tourism, which has a large income from cities like Cancun and Cabo and the rest of the cities that hold the trade for tourism in Mexico.
You know, I want to talk a little bit about the 100-year history now of the revolutions coming up. And I feel like El Paso Juarez is like the capital of that whole celebration. I hope we can really, really put ourselves on the map. You and I have been working on a revolutionary trail where all of these important historic sites where the Magon brothers were living, Madero, Peace Park, all this stuff that happened downtown with Orozco and Villa y todos demás, we can get that going here. And we're talking about all the events that we can put together. So that's going to be exciting to work together on that in the 100-year history. But I just came from a conference, the Border Conference of the Governors in Los Angeles, where we worked on how to make this a just-in-time 21st century border port and those challenges. And some of the things that they were talking about at this border conference to me were exactly the points that we need to start hitting here in El Paso Juarez. The U.S.-Mexico border is today the third largest economy in the world.
Right.
If you took the 10 states, the 6 Mexican states and the 4 U.S. states, we're the third largest economy in the world. There's 100 people who live and work on the border, and the border is defining Mexico in a very positive way and the United States in a very positive way. These issues, these cultural affinities, this diversity, the energy from the border is now beginning to go both directions to define the Americas. And I think these opportunities, 250 million legal crossings a year in El Paso Juarez, in the border region all the way to California and Texas. And so now as we look into the future, let's talk about some of these opportunities that we have to create prosperity on both sides of the border, and let's talk about manufacturing. What do you see as what's going to happen in Juarez in the future with the platform, logistical platform of manufacturing?
Well, we see a new trend coming into Juarez, into the El Paso Juarez area. We see how companies are coming into the city. We have a new company, or a company that's already in Juarez, but that announced a huge investment in Mexico, Foxconn, this manufacturer of, or subcontractor, the world's largest subcontractor, moved or decided to move part of its operation to Juarez. It's going to generate about 20,000 jobs on its first stage in Juarez. Of course, it generates a tremendous amounts of jobs in the United States that have to be coupled with that manufacturing in Mexico. And the interesting decision there is that this company has about 700,000 employees in China, and they decide to continue their growth not in China, but in Mexico. And that really places the focus on what's going to happen next. We're going to get huge companies, because this is a 3 million square foot industrial plant. And that type of manufacturing has its eyes on the border, on this economic area of the world, and we have to compete. Juarez, El Paso has to compete to get those jobs to our area and to get the benefit. We're the best place to do manufacturing. It's not just because we manage this area and we work here and live here. It's really the center of the world. I saw the map you have on your office, and it says the center of the universe, and I agree. I think economically speaking and manufacturing speaking, it is the place where companies want to come to, and we have to continue to work together to achieve that, to get them to come to our area.
You know, I love bringing people into my office, from David Dewhurst or Rick Perry or some of these guys from out of town, Hillary Clinton, they come. And so I point to that map and I say, this really is the center of the universe. So if you want to move the capital from Austin to El Paso, we have the land, we can make it happen, and would be pleased to have you. But you're going to have to fit in with all the other great things that we're doing here. I was at as you know, I've been chairing the border lawmakers group. So all the 10 states, the legislatures have gotten together to talk about this place we call home, which is now the 3rd largest economy in the world, and what can we do to put the issues on the table and then begin to solve them for our people. We represent the hopes and dreams of 100 million people now. And when you talk about that, I was at a meeting where Motorola, which of course grew out of Chicago and now has spread, it's all over the world, it's one of the largest and greatest technology communications companies in the world, and their vice president was talking about leaving China. And we're at a meeting, and she says, these are the reasons that we're leaving China. And so everyone started, oh my gosh, let's listen to this. And she said, the first reason is that we're an idea company. We develop ideas, we spend a lot of money on top-notch research, and then we patent those ideas, and they become the center of prosperity and our value. We have a phone. This kind of software that we've put in the phone is what our competitive advantage is, and they're stealing it in China. And we've got to be in a legal environment where they're not going to steal the ideas that we spend so much time developing. So, wow. The next thing she said is, to do our business, we need engineers. We need mechanical engineers, computer engineers. We need people that know how to run systems. And the Chinese are at least 25 years behind the North American platform. We have 100 great universities in North America. You can go to UNAM, you can go to Monterey Tech, you can go to UACJ, you can go to New Mexico State. UTEP produces a large number of engineers. And then the great universities of the West and East Coast, where you've got innovation happening. She says, that's not happening. It's not going to happen for quite a while. And she said, the final thing is, what's happening with pollution in China, our people will not live unless people will solve these issues of pollution. I want to talk to you a little bit about ASARCO, because I think that's one of those issues that we have in common. We must solve that issue. But the point was, they're leaving China, they're coming back, and the logistical platform for manufacturing, movement, and innovation is El Paso, Juarez, and the border. I sat there taking notes saying, where does that put us as leaders, and now what challenges do we face that we have to solve? And the leading challenge is regionally integrating our logistical and infrastructure platform so that we are just in time, moving people, moving products in a 21st century environment. And I want to visit with you about that, about where you see Juarez going, where we're working together, and what could happen in this great community we call home.
Well, I think that's, you're exactly right. I think with the price of oil going up and all the aspects you talked about, China and Southeast Asia and in general manufacturing, it's becoming more and more expensive to bring the goods from Southeast Asia and that really takes away the competitive advantage that they had, which was all labor. The rest of it, the cost for the rest of manufacturing was the same. So we are back in the top competitive advantage, and the main thing that we need to overcome is logistics, the bridges, the bringing in the goods into the United States, making the flow of trailers and commerce very fast, and that's where I think we have been very successful, and I thank you for your support and your leadership in this development in El Paso to create more border crossings, to create faster processing times for trailers coming into the United States, to keep in mind that security is a main issue and that needs to be taken care of, but at the same time understanding that trade is what makes the United States competitive, and it's what makes Mexico competitive, and we're partners in this. The United States will keep its jobs, will keep its economy as strong as it is when it can maintain a competitive advantage, and Mexico is the partner that can give the United States that competitive advantage. We are working together to do this. I think we're very glad in Juarez to have someone like you with a vision to do this in the United States, and we hope to be the partners in Mexico that we can push this along and get the whole process integrated to take advantage of the opportunities that El Paso Juarez has.
You know, when I stand on the Texas Senate floor, I rise and say, our great state does more trade with Mexico than all the European Union combined, right, by multiples. We have to recognize that our future lies in increasing prosperity, trade, close relationships, and integrating our regional economy so that we become more efficient in terms of how we move ideas, people, and product. We have a phrase, moving people and product faster, safer, smarter in the 21st century. And what we've been doing a lot is going now to the Canadian border. I've gone up there now 4 times this year to gather as partners the Canadians and the 16 northern U.S. states, because they have 32 U.S. senators, so that they can become partners in moving people and products faster. And they are excited about this. They're having in September a meeting in Ottawa. Their interparliamentary group is going to talk only about moving people and products, the logistics of moving people across borders, whether by train or plane, and the logistics of moving passenger cars, and most importantly, these trucks that are carrying the products between our nations, because they become fairly complex technical issues when you talk about security. I'm really excited that we are having the first pilot program anywhere on either border about moving trucks in a just-in-time environment. Safe, secure, all the customs, all the security issues of immigration. We're going to fight, make sure there's no drugs or contraband on these trucks. But how do we take a truck that's bringing, say, cell phones from Mexico, or Electrolux is building half of the appliances right here in our sister city, or the TVs that are being produced right now, and the things that we have here that we're moving north and south in a very safe environment. So that pilot program is now moving forward right here in El Paso Juarez. And to me, it's one of the most exciting things that we have going, because we're going to solve these issues of how do you identify who is that in the truck. And so the security issues of the United States are satisfied, but the movement goes in seconds instead of the hours that are being added to these trips. I want to talk a little bit about our region. I just came from a day of touring in parts of Texas where they're now talking about transit-related development, the idea that the transit system is going to define how you grow in the future, because gas prices are now making it so important for people to have a transit-related development where they can move at low cost. They don't have to drive 40 miles in their car and fill up twice a week at $70, but they can get to work, they can get home, they can get their kids to school in a much more quality of life environment where we're moving cities up and not out so much. And this dream that we've talked about of having a system, a fixed rail system between El Paso and Juarez to start moving people in an environment that is both safe but also fast. How do you see that rolling out in Juarez?
I think it's a wonderful idea, and I really like. I saw the projects that they presented to you, and I think we have to follow their example. And in Juarez, El Paso, I think the movement of people between our two cities is one of the more complicated issues that we face. It's an environmental issue, it's a trade issue, it's a family issue because families are along both sides of the border, and we have to solve it in a visionary way with rail transportation, with modern installations that take people fast and economically from one side of the border to the other, and we can do it in a secure manner. We have to design a system that's top of the line, that's futuristic in its conception, but that's secure in its implementation. We have to understand that the securities issues of the United States and of Mexico are high, and that we have to be sure that no drugs or other goods that are prohibited in their trade move along our borders, that no persons that are unauthorized move along our borders. But at the same time, the rest of the trade and the exchange of persons is the same people every day. Kids that come to school to one side or the other, to families that visit their relatives, and business people that work on one or the other side of the border. They cross every day, and it's in the millions every year. We have to find a way to do it in an easy manner that will make us competitive in our and give us that advantage in the future.
You know, I'm up there in Vancouver, Seattle, which is one of the major emerging metro areas of the world, beautiful part of the world. Train leaves Seattle, doesn't stop at the border. Light goes on in my head. When we look up, planes are not stopping at the border. There's not a big queue of 747s going into Juarez because they've stopped at the border. So you say, why? Why is because we've solved these issues with technology. The passengers have been pre-cleared, they've been identified, we know what's basically in the luggage has been checked. And so most of these issues have been pre-cleared before they even get to the border. So how do we emulate that on the ground with a fixed rail system, call it light rail, call it a people mover, whatever you call it, but it's moving people very efficiently. You have 250 million people that are legal crossings on the border. And so why are they in the same line with the person that we don't know who they are? If we know who this person is and we have a secure way of understanding their identity, maybe a thumbprint, then we can move rapidly to develop the systems around it. Those systems are now being rolled out in places like Vancouver and Seattle. They're using them in different logistical platforms around the world, and now it's up to us to seize the leadership, seize the opportunity, I think, and make that happen here. I want to move now to some issues that are a little tougher. We've got issues in the United States of drug consumption. A fellow called me the other day and said, I want to do a big conference in El Paso on methamphetamines because our communities in the Midwest and our communities in rural America are being affected by methamphetamine. I want to do it in El Paso. I said, well, why do you want to do it here? You're consuming it there. And they were saying, well, it's coming through your port. And I said, well, it's coming through our port because your kids and your people are using it in your community. And so we got to work together. Your consumption is driving issues that are happening here in my community. In Mexico, we've seen the really serious issues of the rise of drug cartels and the violence that started in Nuevo Laredo and places where the Zetas are active and now has migrated to Juarez. Where are we going with that? Both as a nation, your nation, our great nation, and as cities. Where do you see us headed?
Well, I think we have to work together. This is not an issue that can be solved unilaterally, and I'm glad to see the U.S. Congress and the U.S. government moving into supporting some of the efforts on the war on drug cartels and drug trafficking in Mexico with the Mérida initiative, and we have to support action by both sides of the border. A large part of what's been going on along the borders has to do with use of illegal weapons in Mexico. And all of those illegal weapons are, or most of them are bought legally in the United States and illegally transported into Mexico. We have to stop arms trade into Mexico. We have to be able to help each other between the governments to stop that kind of trade, and we have to stop consumption of drugs in both sides of the border. I think it's important that the government's efforts to stop the use of drugs is a joint effort. We have a huge issue with Mexican drug cartels in the country, and the mayhem they create in the cities they operate on. And at the same time, we start looking at laws where in the United States where they're very tough along the border, but then become very lenient when they come to drug use in certain states of the country. And we have to have a policy, a governmental policy that's set for the countries, that's a policy that looks towards getting kids of drugs, not allowing them to get into the drug use, and by diminishing the drug use in the United States, we stop the drug trafficking along the Mexican-U.S. border, and that gives us a good way of solving security issues that are security issues for the United States and for Mexico. What's happening along the borders in Mexico is not just a security issue for Mexico, it is a security issue for the United States.
I think more and more people are now looking at this as a multi-layered combined strategy, dealing very forcefully, as President Calderon has done, with drug cartels and being zero tolerance for any kind of violence and activity, and taking tremendous risks. I mean, when you look at what's happening in Mexico with assassinations way up into his cabinet level, folks, it's amazing that he's taken the courage to lay out those policies. You and Juarez and all the great things that you've been doing there to send a clear message, we're not going to tolerate this violence and so forth. And on our side, looking at the consumption issues, and what you have moving north is cocaine and marijuana and pieces of methamphetamine. What's moving south are weapons. What's moving south is the cash that is fueling the war in Mexico. And so we have to, as a trade corridors, again, work on these issues. We had meetings here a month ago and invited the administrations of Chihuahua and Juarez to come hear what we were working on, because the state of Texas, we're trying to ask that they become much more forceful in adopting the strategies that New York adopted in the 80s. When New York dealt with the Sicilian mafia, you had an internationalized cartel. Their port of entry was New York. They had infiltrated fairly deeply into the neighborhoods of the 5 boroughs of New York. And so they took a strategy that was federal, country to country, state, basically DPS to state agencies, and then local, here's what we're going to do local, and got very targeted about taking out key personnel and then forfeiting these properties that once you get to the heart of the value of the criminal enterprise, then there's not so much value in putting all the energy into it. So it became a very successful model in New York that I think we in Texas are hoping to adopt and emulate. I wanted to first thank you very much for being on the show. It's so great to talk as we have since the day you got into office and visit. We've been friends now for many years. There's one last thing I want to put before we have to say goodbye to our audience, and that is the great friendship between our cities for these years and our nations, and talk about youth sports. The hope that we can rise one day to be the soccer capital of North America, El Paso, Juarez.
Oh yeah, we have to continue to work on this, and I really am glad that we have. I've been in office for a little over 9 months, and I think in those 9 months we've met more than 5 or 6 times already to work together to get our communities together. And one of the things we've been talking about is doing international soccer tournament between our cities. It's I know it's a logistical difficulty in doing such an international meeting, but it's very important that we do. It's very important that we get our communities together through sports. I think we can do it. I think we can take advantage of what's happening in the sports world with the Olympics and the enthusiasm for sports, and use that to the kids' advantages and sports-wise, but also to the community's advantage in getting the families and the community together as one community.
I agree 110%. We've had a great show today with our guest and our good friend, the Mayor of Juarez, Mayor Reyes Ferriz. Until next time when we come from Austin with news from Austin, it's been great to have you on our show about what's going on in the great cities of El Paso, Juarez. Thank you so much.